Hey guys, it is Carly here bringing you your Tuesday review on body bags. It is theme week once again on body bags, and I actually picked the theme this week and I went with possession films. The reason I went with that theme is because I've been wanting to check out this movie again for quite some time, and it's just been kind of sitting in my collection, so I thought this would be a good way to go ahead and give it a watch, and that is The Exorcism of Emily Rose. Now, I saw this movie when I was pretty young. I believe this came out in 2005, so probably around when it came out and when it was really big. I remember a lot of people were talking about it back then, so I remember watching it back then, and I don't remember a whole lot about it. I just remember being very bored by it and not interested at all, so I wanted to rewatch it now that I am older, just because I've heard a lot of good things about it, and I felt like maybe the plot would appeal to me a little bit more this time around. So the plot here is you have this character, Emily Rose, who is a 19-year-old girl. You know, she's very innocent. She's just going to college, just your typical young girl with her whole life ahead of her. One day, these forces start to kind of attack her, and she believes she is possessed by demons, and it just kind of gets worse and worse from there. Meanwhile, in this movie, you are following this court case that is set after the events that took place with Emily Rose, and it is basically the priest who exorcised her. They're trying to prove him not guilty of her death because he is in some trouble for being the one to do the exorcism, and just based on how she turned out afterwards and how she ended up dying. So they are trying to prove that maybe there are these spiritual forces going on and it is not all a mental condition. Reason I didn't like it the first time around is because the whole thing with the movie takes place in this courtroom, and it's just telling the events of Emily Rose throughout. It's not really about Emily Rose exactly. That's kind of what I didn't like about it. I thought that type of stuff was really just boring and uninteresting, and back then I just kind of wanted to see a scary exorcism movie. I thought it was going to be like The Exorcist or anything like that, where you're just following this story of a possessed girl getting worse and worse, and yeah, that's just kind of the only reason I really didn't like it. This time around, I gotta say, I actually really enjoyed this movie. The parts in the courtroom I actually found to be very interesting. I like the concept, how they're talking about this might be mental problems, like epilepsy and other neurological disorders going on with this girl, but then the other argument is that it actually might be demons and something not of this earth that is affecting her, and it's just a very touchy subject because a lot of people don't really believe in the supernatural universe, so when it comes to trying to prove a guy who did an exorcist not guilty, it's just kind of very difficult to do just based on people's beliefs. So I found that to be very interesting. Emily Rose herself, I have said this, that the girl who played her is the girl from White Chicks, and she just has that look about her where you can't help but think about White Chicks when you watch the movie because you just know it's that girl. She also played in Quarantine, and for some reason I didn't have that big of an issue when she played in Quarantine, but in this movie that's all I can really picture. But with that being said, she does do a pretty decent job. I feel that this movie's not necessarily all about her. It's not mainly focused on her, even though it's the story is about her, but you don't really get as much of her, I feel, as you do with the courtroom scenes and the people trying to figure out what happened with her death and all that stuff. But the scenes you get with her are pretty good, and some of them are very chilling. I'm not really scared by demonic stuff and things like that nowadays, especially because I'm not really religious. I know people who are religious would probably find stuff like this to be a lot more terrifying, but I've never been overly religious or anything like that. I am open-minded, but at the same time, this type of stuff doesn't affect me as much as it would other people. But once again, with that being said, there are parts in this that actually genuinely creep me out, and I wasn't expecting it. There's one part in particular that made me jump, and it's one of those things where you know it's coming and you keep watching the screen and then it happens, and it's just kind of shocking and unexpected, and has to do with like body contortions and things like that, which don't always bother me that much because I feel like they're overused sometimes in movies, but in this movie it really worked and it was really disturbing, so gotta give it that. Overall, I thought it was a pretty decent film. I could see why a lot of people do like this. I wouldn't say it's one that I would rewatch a whole lot just because it's not necessarily a fun movie, and it is, I believe, exactly 2 hours long, so it is a longer watch. I don't feel like it was slow or anything like that, though, despite what you're dealing with, this courtroom thing. You would think it would be kind of a slower film, but it actually kind of moves, especially because you're going in and out of the courtroom scenes as well as the scenes with Emily Rose herself, and as well as scenes with the lawyer who is being haunted by her own demons and things like that. So it keeps you interested throughout. It's not very boring, and it doesn't focus too much on just one scene for too long or anything like that. So I do like it for that, but like I said, not something that I find overly fun and rewatchable, but for rewatch, I'm glad I did rewatch this because I liked it a lot more than I expected to. I was actually kind of dreading watching this one, even though it was my pick, just because I thought I might be bored by it and not able to pay attention, but I did not get that at all. So yeah, Exorcism of Emily Rose, I give an 8 out of 10. Definitely check it out if you have not, and definitely check it out again if you did not like it the first time, because you might end up loving it, as I did. So yeah, 8 out of 10. Thank you guys for joining me for this Tuesday review, and as always, I will see you next week.